Dun, 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 dun. Ain't this something? Ain't this a hoot? This right here. Right here. All right, the Ten Commandments in schools in 8 minutes. So, Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, passes a bill or a law that puts the Ten Commandments in public schools. The Ten Commandments, putting this back in public schools. This is, and I'm sure a lot of people are excited about this. Man, the Ten Commandments in public schools. In fact, let's read this article to hear how some people are responding to this reality. All right. This is what happens when you use some of these joints. This is a live video. We're not watching the live video. All right, here we go. Louisiana has triggered a national controversy with a new law mandating that the Ten Commandments be displayed in all public classrooms. All right. The state law signed by the state's GOP governor has been blasted by the Civil Rights Liberties Group, of course, which argues it infringes on the rights of students and blatantly ignores the separation of church and state. The issue, that's so funny, separation of church and state. We'll talk about it in a second. The issue will soon be headed to the courts with organizations such as the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, saying they plan to sue the state, and Governor Jeff Landry vowing to defend the law. It is also showing signs of becoming intertwined in national political races, with former President Trump embracing the law in a true social post. I love the Ten Commandments in public schools, private schools, and many other places for that matter. Read it. How can we as a nation go wrong? I'm sad. This may be, in fact, the first major step in the revival of religion, which is desperately needed in our country, he added. The biblical posters in Louisiana classrooms must be in large, easily readable font by the beginning of next year. The display will also include 3 paragraphs that explain the prominence of the Ten Commandments in American education history. We're thrilled to see that Governor Landry signed this bill into law. We think it gets us back more closely to the original intent of our founding fathers. Interesting. All right. So you got the Ten Commandments in schools. All right. Then you see down here, it's a prime example of how Christian nationalism is on the march across this country. It would force public school children of all religions to read and venerate the state's preferred brand of Christianity. All right, so a couple things about this. All right. First and foremost, separation of church and state. All right. Let's make sure we're clear on what that is. All right. Separation of church and state is primarily an old historical conversation that basically said that the government, the newly formed United States government, would not adopt a particular church as its church because they were just coming from England, right? Where the King of England had, at the time, I think it was the Presbyterian Church. So they called, what we call the American Revolution, England called the Presbyterian War, right? They called it that. So the separation of church and state was just a promise by the governing authorities, the founding fathers, to not adopt, like, say, the Southern Baptist Church or a particular church. It wasn't really about not having things be somehow connected to that. So that's kind of a false reality there of separation of church and state. But here's the thing. So you got Trump saying, let's pull this back. We got to go back to this. All right. So here's what Trump is saying. Let's see what Trump said. And this is what I think the real issue is for this. All right. I love the Ten Commandments in public school, private schools, and many other places for that matter. Read it. How can we as a nation go wrong? This may be, in fact, the first major step in the revival of religion, which is desperately needed in our country. All right, so let's just call a spade a spade. First of all, the Ten Commandments isn't about being read, all right? It's about believing it and living it, right? The Ten Commandments posted on school walls has nothing to do with revival in our country. But then the language is revival of religion. We don't need revival of religion because religion, if the Ten Commandments are not religious, they're about honoring the God of the Bible, which we would call Christian, right? So the Ten Commandments aren't about reviving religion. So yeah, you put them everywhere, but these don't change the hearts of people. This may be, in fact, the first step to the revival of religion that we have. Here's the problem with this stuff, right? While it seems like a win, in the scriptures, we're not told to impose morality on the culture because that's what God's after. We're told to make to make disciples. We want people to be discipled and have their hearts changed because they believe in Jesus, not because there's a 10 commandments on the wall. Here's the reality. In the Old Testament, God created the 10 commandments and many other laws and things that were associated with applying the 10 commandments, and it did not have the ability to change Israel. Because all the law does is reveal your desire to sin against it or how much you want to go against the grain of it. The 10 commandments in schools are not, it may be good to have it up there. I think it's good in the sense that you put all this other stuff up there. You're allowed to put whatever. So we should be allowed to put the 10 commandments wherever. I stand by. But in terms of it being a revival or it's going to do work, I don't think so. And I don't think Trump is a Christian. So be mad at me if you want. I don't think he's a believer. I think he's an opportunist, right? But in terms of those of us who are believers, we have to be careful to not be theological. The goal, the job is not to get, I don't know if the governor of Louisiana is even a believer, but our job is not to get non-Christians to pass laws that are closer to Christian so that the world is a better place. That's not how it works. We're past looking to the law to change anything. You put the 10 commandments up and those kids will just efface it. And honestly, I think it'll be more just cause for them to go against the grain of it because they're feeling forced to have to look at it. And this is the problem where I think this is usually what the conservative side likes. And this is the problem because conservative Christianity is syncretic in its understanding of the gospel and its mission. We're not supposed to create moral laws that, and that's what wins people. That's not what happens. You put the 10 commandments up, no one's going to care. There may be a few people like, can you imagine someone reading it and being like, oh, wow, I should stop doing this because maybe, and the Lord can use it, don't get me wrong, but that's not the mission that we're supposed to be on. We're not supposed to let the 10 commandments save people. We're supposed to have conversations with people and be able to answer those questions, not 3 paragraphs describing the significance of the 10 commandments. That's not how it works. And so while this may seem like a win for Christians and the church or whatever, I don't think it is. I think it's going to be more reason to just stir up animosity towards the church. The conservative side, the Christian right, has punted in many ways from what I see. Not everyone, obviously, but I think there's a movement where let's get these politicians to pass laws that get rid of the evil in the land, and that's taking back the country for God. And yet none of those people are saved. If you change every law, you put the 10 commandments everywhere, you put statues of Jesus, you put that stuff everywhere, it does not change hearts. It doesn't. It didn't change Israel's heart in the Old Testament. It's not going to change the kids in Louisiana in the New Testament. It's going to probably cause more animosity. But this is the culture we live in. We think that mission, Matthew 28, 18 through 20, we think go into all the world and change the laws and so that people are legally not allowed to sin in ways that they would be. That's not the mission of the church. While that's beneficial, don't get me wrong. If you can change the laws, cool. But you know what would be better? Change the actual hearts of people. And let me say lastly about Trump. Why is Trump talking about a revival of religion? He should be saying, this will bring Jesus back. This will bring the Bible back. This will be, now maybe he said that in a subsequent post. I don't follow him on True Social. I'm only going by this quote that we saw. Who cares about a revival? Do you know religion is a ton of different things? You think we need a revival of religion? That includes Islam, Baha'i faith, Jehovah's Witness, Mormons. It includes, Satanism is a religion. We don't need a revival of religion. We need Jesus. We need people to see who Jesus is, what Jesus did for them, and that Jesus is asking them and wanting to save them from God's wrath, from eternity. We need that. We don't need a revival of religion. We need a revival of people actually caring enough about other people's souls to preach the gospel and not trying to belittle them for believing in things that rival the gospel. When in all seriousness, 1 Corinthians 5, Paul said, I'm not judging the world. I'm judging those who profess to believe. He said, God judges the outsider, purge the evil from among you. That 10 commandments is not going to change people's hearts. unless people use it to evangelize, and most kids are just not going to care. They're going to probably use it to revolt against the actual truth because there's no love in the law and just seeing 10 commandments. They need to see people who have been transformed by Jesus talk about why they should be transformed as well. What do I know? I think this whole thing is just for the conservatives to have the moral high ground, but it's not really going to change anyone's hearts. But I could be wrong. Maybe the Lord will use it. I hope he does. I just don't see it happening. Whatever. See you all on the next one.